Hey guys, what's going on? Jacob here. Today, we're going to take JavaScript further with jQuery. You don't necessarily need to know jQuery to know JavaScript, but as you'll see, using jQuery can shrink the amount of JavaScript that you need to write. So, let's get started. jQuery is a JavaScript library that's goal is to make writing JavaScript much easier. In fact, its written goal is to write less, do more. It simplifies JavaScript so that doing basic tasks takes a lot less code. Writing document.getElementById every time you need an element is a bit of a pain. As you'll see in jQuery, all you'll need for that is just a $sign and parentheses. Despite the conciseness, you can do anything in jQuery that you would be able to do with basic JavaScript. And the best part is that it has support in all major browsers. In order to get started with jQuery, you'll need to download jQuery to your site's files, or you can call it from the Content Delivery Network or CDN, like Google or Microsoft. If you're using a version of jQuery that you downloaded, you can call it like you would any other JS file. And you'll do the same for a CDN version of jQuery, except that the source attribute is a link to that CDN's jQuery file. Now the basic syntax for jQuery is the $sign, parentheses, the selector for the item in between the parentheses, and then an action to run on that element. And the selector works basically the same as selectors in CSS. We'll talk more about events in the next section, but we'll talk about one right here, the document ready event. Typically in jQuery, you'll see the $sign and then document ready at the top of a document, and then the rest of jQuery inside of that. This event holds off running all that jQuery until the page is loaded so that it runs correctly. You can also do the same thing with $sign function like this too. One of the things jQuery does exceptionally well is handle events. Unlike having to set event listeners or add JavaScript functions to HTML attributes, all we need to do in jQuery is grab the element, dot, and then the event, like click or hide. Typically, a lot of events will accept a callback function as a parameter. You could put a function name here, but it's typical to use what's known as an anonymous function. This is where essentially you define a function in that parameter spot. It works the same as a normal function, except you don't give it a name. So if we wanted to do something when a button is clicked on the page, we would use this jQuery. There are a ton of different events available in jQuery, and I've put a link down below to a list of all of them. These do exactly what you would expect them to do. They hide or show an element. You can use both functions just fine with no parameters. But they also accept the speed of a transition as a parameter, as well as a callback function, which will run after the animation for the show or hide is completed. So if we wanted to hide an element on a button click, we would use this code. And if we wanted to show an element on a button click, we would also use this jQuery. Another set of really cool methods are the fade methods. These are fade in, fade out, fade toggle, and fade to. The first two are pretty self-explanatory, but fade toggle toggles the element fade in or fade out depending on the state of the element being faded. And fade to fades an element to a specified opacity level. Each of these methods accepts two parameters: the speed of the effect, which can be slow, fast, or time in milliseconds, and a callback function to run after the fade. Fade to, however, has three parameters, with the opacity level to fade to in between the other two parameters. We can also run animations with jQuery as well, and it's much less code than normal JavaScript. To do animations, we just need to use the animate function. This function accepts three parameters: a list of CSS properties that will be animated, the speed of the animation, and the callback function for after the animate function is run. The most important aspect here is the CSS properties. These are the properties that will be changed to during the animation. So to change our JavaScript animation to a jQuery animation, we would just make this change to our left position property. Properties like right, left, top, bottom, width, and height can be either absolute numbers, like 250 pixels, or they can be relative to their starting value, like plus equal 250 pixels. You can also use show, hide, and toggle, mostly with width and height properties. Finally, one of the best parts about jQuery is the ability to chain methods together. This makes it easier to make multiple changes to an element with less code. So for example, we can fade in an element, and when it's faded in, we can change the background color to a flat blue. And our code for this is extremely clean and short. That's great when you're creating larger projects. Well, that's all for today. Feel free to check out the jQuery website for more awesome things you can do with the library. We'll probably revisit this later down the road. In the meantime, do you have any questions over what we went over today? If so, leave them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. But until next time, good luck and happy coding.